Earlier on today, apparently a woman rang the BBC and said she heard that there was a hurricane on the way. Well, if you're watching, don't worry, there isn't. But having said...
Everybody, well, we're going to look at perhaps the most famous weather forecast ever anywhere in the world in this video. Yes, that particular forecast from the 15th of October 1987, 25 years ago, the famous hurricane of 1987. In fact, Mike Fish was quite right, because there wasn't a hurricane, but there was hurricane force winds, and it really was an extremely severe storm that we had across southern and southeastern parts of the British Isles on the night of the 15th to the 16th of October 1987. So let's have a look at the charts, see how things developed through the course of that period, and we'll start off at the start of October, when actually we had a fair amount of fine weather with high pressure out to the east of the country, but it was bringing up this southerly wind. It was actually a very thundery month, 1987, October 1987, and these southerly winds did bring up some thunderstorms at the start of the month, and things got more unsettled then as we went on through the month. Big area of low pressure there on the 8th of October 1987. It really was a very unsettled month indeed, very wet month. As we run through in towards the 12th of October, again, low pressure is very much dominating weather. And this was typical of October 1987. As I say, it was a very wet month, one of the wettest Octobers of the 20th century, with copious amounts of heavy rain and some quite severe flooding as well. But it's really that storm overnight through the 15th into the 16th that was the main talking point of this month. It's probably one of the severest weather events to occur in the British Isles, and certainly one of the most severest weather events of my lifetime. I'm 35, and it really was an extremely severe weather event indeed. As I say, probably one of the severest weather events in the British Isles ever to be recorded. So this is the situation on the 13th of October. Again, low pressure is dominating here. We're bringing areas of rain in off the Atlantic. It's quite cool as well. And as we go through to the 14th, well, this is when things start to happen, because we've got these tropical features down here in the mid-Atlantic beginning to develop, and we've got a very strong jet stream as well starting to run across the Atlantic. So this doesn't actually look particularly exciting, it doesn't look particularly severe, but it's these little areas here running along a wave, waving weather front really, that's running through the tropical and mid-Atlantic, that's causing all of the trouble. And this was the start of things really getting going. But this day, the 14th of October 87, was again a very wet day, very unsettled day with showers and longer spells of rain. Now as we go through to the 15th of October, this is midnight on the 15th of October. Remember, the storm is the 15th to the 16th, but what we have on the 15th of October is this deep area of low pressure across the British Isles. The 15th of October, I remember it well, was a very wet day, a cloudy day across much of England and Wales, persistent rain. It wasn't windy, the winds were light. It was actually quite misty, murky, with a fair amount of hill and coastal fog around. But it wasn't that windy, but the trouble really is developing here to the west of Portugal. This area here is an explosive area of low pressure to begin to develop. Now if you think we've got a weather front here trailing back from this feature down to this next developing area of low pressure waving front, so that's one wave that's formed an area of low pressure. This is a second wave that's formed an area of low pressure. There are tropical elements within this storm. I can't remember offhand the name of the hurricane that is within these tropical elements, but yes, there was a tropical element to this storm, as there often is in October. Many of the low pressures that we get throughout October do contain a certain amount of hurricane and tropical storm elements. That's nothing unusual, that's very typical of the kind of areas of low pressure that we get through September and October in this country. But if we have a look at the upper air temperatures, these tell the story really, because the problem is along this convergence area here. We've got a very, very steep temperature gradient here. There's the 0 Celsius isotherm there in the Atlantic. Just a few hundred miles to the south, we've got the 5 Celsius isotherm, and just a few hundred miles further south from that, we've got the 10 Celsius isotherm. If you go back here, there's the -5 isotherm actually digging well down into the Atlantic. Now, that -5 isotherm is this is the important area around here, and we have got a steep temperature gradient going on here, a 10 Celsius temperature gradient. Tropical elements are within this area from tropical storm, from hurricane features, and as I say, it's this convergence area that causes the area of low pressure, to deepen incredibly and explosively as we go through the course of the evening and night of the 15th to the 16th of October. So let's have a look at the chart for the 16th of October. By the way, you can see all of these historical charts from the historic archive at weathercentral.de. Just go to my links page, you'll be able to click on the link for Weather Central, and then you'll be able to see the historic archive going all the way back to 1871. So this is the midnight chart for the 16th of October 1987. Really severe storm is going on at this point. The low pressure has run up from Portugal and the Bay of Biscay into southern England, taking really heavy rain up across all parts of England and Wales, but it's on the southern and eastern side of this low pressure. We've got these very, very tightly packed isobars, and these isobars are sweeping up. It doesn't actually look like it's happening here, but believe me, these isobars just come up across the southern and southeastern parts of the country. Very tightly packed, very intense winds, storm developing, and as I say, through the early hours of the 16th of October, it was particularly severe, with some places, Dover, Ashford in Kent, getting over 100 mile an hour wind gusts. There was 106 mile an hour gust recorded at Ashford in Kent, 115 miles an hour recorded at Shoreham, and this left, unfortunately, 18 people dead and over 15 million trees. Can you believe this? 15 million trees in southern and southeastern England uprooted. Now, I remember going down to southern England in the November of 1987, and the sight of seeing all of those trees flattened was absolutely extraordinary. Some cases there was trees that had stood for hundreds and hundreds of years, just blown away by this storm, and in a few places entire forests, entire woods were flattened by these wind gusts. It was absolutely heartbreaking really to see all of those trees flattened off across southern and southeast England, but a really extraordinary sight. As I say, 18 people unfortunately lost their lives with this storm, so it really was a very, very devastating storm indeed. Up where I am in Northamptonshire, actually we just got rain and some slightly strong winds, but really severe wind gusts were to the south and to the southeast of the country. As we run through to have a look at the upper air temperatures, we can see that what's going on is, again, we've brought that 10 Celsius isotherm up across southern England. There's the 5 Celsius isotherm, there's the 0 Celsius isotherm, so we've got this big temperature gradient going on across the country, and this warm tropical air that was feeding the low pressure and caused the low pressure to really deepen, really deepen through the Bay of Biscay up in towards southern England. Big temperature gradient, as I say, at 11 p.m. On the night of the 15th of October. It was 17 Celsius at Southend, but only 8 Celsius at Stansted. So that was the reason, really, for this severe weather. It was very much the huge temperature gradient that occurred. Now, wide areas saw wind gusts up to 50 to 80 miles an hour, so you did get those 100 mile an hour plus wind gusts hitting southern and far southeastern parts of the country. Now, eventually this storm moved out of the way, and the storm finally finished up towards the coast of Norway. There it is at midnight on the 17th of October. So it travelled a long way. In 2 days it's gone from the Bay of Biscay and off the coast of Portugal on the 15th to by the 17th it's up there off the coast of Norway, and as I say, it was really running across the southern and southeastern parts of the country where we saw on the southern side of the low pressure where we saw those severe wind gusts. Now, the rest of the month was very unsettled too, so as we go through to the 22nd of October, low pressure still very much dominated weather, and that low pressure is still really in control actually as we go through towards the end of the month, the 28th of October. Here is the chart for the 28th of October, low pressure off the Atlantic really is in control of the pattern, but we didn't see anything at all as severe as what we saw on the night of the 15th and the 16th of October. This was probably the severest storm to hit the British Isles since 1703, can you believe? So it was a good 200 years plus, actually 300 years since we've seen, or nearly 300 years since we've seen anything as severe as this storm. So it really was a very extreme weather event. Very serious weather event. It caused 18 people to lose their lives and it flattened millions of trees across southern and southeast England. A very severe weather event indeed. As for Michael Fish, well, he maintains, and is quite right to maintain, that he was right because it wasn't a hurricane, and he'd highlight the fact that it would be very windy, very wet across southern and southeastern areas. Where the Met Office probably went wrong, Michael Fish probably went wrong, was that they didn't really give an idea of just how severe it would be. But at that time it was unforecastable that the low pressure would deepen as it did really. So you can't really fault the Met Office and Michael Fish with this because there just really wasn't any indication when they was doing those forecasts in the middle of the day of the 15th that that low pressure would intensify as much as they say that their model now, if this happened now, their model would very much be able to predict that intensification of the low pressure and be able to give out the warnings in advance. But back then, 1987, the technology, the models weren't as good as they are now, and it just wasn't really forecastable that we would see quite such a severe storm running across the country. And in any case, I think Michael Fisher's done quite well out of this. The media turned on him at the time, but he certainly made a bit of a name for himself out of it. He still goes around, I think, talking about what happened. People are still very interested in getting his side of the story, and certainly I think Michael Fisher can say has come out of it all quite well. But it really was a very extreme weather event. It just goes to show you how extreme the weather can get in the British Isles. We aren't used to extreme weather. We don't normally get extreme weather. We're very lucky really in the UK with our weather. We don't suffer from the extremes generally that some parts of the country do suffer from, but we certainly can do if the conditions are right and we're at the right time of year for those conditions, then we can get some very extreme weather. And this event from 1987 was at the extreme end of that event. So it's 25 years since we had such an extreme weather event. Hopefully we won't see one again. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.